Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and thrilled to be back for another episode where our guest today is Ben Sperry. Our host, of course, is Roxanne Petraeus. Roxanne, I'm going to pitch it over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Of course. Thanks for the invite.
Definitely. This is very fun because I've known a bit about working with Bestow, but I'm excited to hear your perspective on compliance training, what's on your radar, et cetera. Maybe to start, would you mind doing an introduction of yourself, your role, and what's most top of mind for you?
For sure. Yeah. My name's Ben Sperry, relocated from New York to Dallas to work at Bestow. My current role is Deputy Chief Compliance Officer. I report right up to the Chief Legal Office. Right now, top of mind, it's really AI. That's the big ticket picture in my world.
Oh, I'm excited to ask a couple more questions about that. But maybe could you also tell folks a bit more about Besto and what maybe makes it interesting from a compliance perspective? I feel like folks who sit on the intersection of maybe tech and like insurance have a unique perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Just a level set, Bestow. We build technology that makes purchasing life insurance faster, easier, and more efficient for customers and agents. That's breaking the mold of traditional old school life carriers. So,
Mhm.
what we offer is a very fast underwriting process. You can go out to our website, apply for insurance, and get approved within 10 minutes. Whereas you go to a traditional carrier, you got to go get a medical exam. It could be a month or two before you even bind the policy. So, what we do is we take that software, we offer it as a service to enterprise partners. For
Hmm.
instance, Nationwide, Transamerica, they leverage our product and they put it on their systems for their agents to use.
That's very cool. You could moonlight as a marketer. That's a very clear explanation
There
of what
you
you
go.
do. Amazing. And let's see, I creeped on LinkedIn before this. Your professional background is in largely compliance, but maybe what got you into compliance and then specifically what brought you into Besto?
Yeah, so my career, I've worked at three large life insurance companies. What got me into compliance? I have an undergrad in political science, and I had an internship at the New York legislature. And while I was there, I discovered very quickly I do not want to do this. So I actually didn't even apply for a job. Someone called me and said, "Come in, talk to us, let me explain why you'd be a good fit here." And I was hired to do legislative analysis at my first job within a compliance
Oh,
department.
okay.
And that kind of opened the door to where we are now.
I feel like the best internships either tell you're in the right career or very much tell you're in the wrong career.
That's
Either way,
right. That's exactly right.
that's cool. And then I've gotten to know a few folks at your company through Athena, so we provide your compliance training. Could you talk to me a bit about how you think, like, what is a good compliance training program? What is an employee like experience? What do you want folks to walk away with? What makes a program like really sing in your eyes?
The big one for us is just getting employees engaged. Like when we send out a training through Athena, we give folks primarily 60 days to complete it. So just getting them to prioritize it is fairly difficult. There's always competing priorities, the daily work grind, right? We're still in startup mode. So everyone's
Yep.
juggling five different things at once. So it's really just getting them engaged, getting them to prioritize it, and of course, come away with something. We want the training to be effective and from them to learn from it and make sure they're using it in their day-to-day work life.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel sometimes completion is almost an afterthought, but of course it is really difficult. You've got sales teams that are busy, end of quarter, et cetera. Have you found anything to be particularly effective at driving up completion, like reducing I think about it sometimes as like the eye roll barrier where an employee is just, oh, like archive email, I'm busy right now. Like anything you found that works particularly well there?
Yeah, so my team does a compliance corner. We
Mm.
have bi-weekly all employee meetings, and on a quarterly basis, my team, a certain representative from my team, will join and present for 5 minutes. And training, we always conclude with training. We always say, "Hey,
Oh,
this is
nice.
what's due, this is what's coming up next."
Yeah.
So just that continuing communication, and to piggyback off of that, speaking the language of the employees, right?
Mm.
So we're a tech company. We leverage Slack quite a bit. That's how we
Yeah.
communicate. That's how we send messaging. We have all the channels in the world on Slack. So we do as much as we can to communicate what's due, what's coming. Athena is great. We can integrate Athena with Slack to send out
Yeah.
notifications and reminders. And I even do escalations over Slack. If someone hasn't completed a training within the allotted time, I'll shoot them a note and ask if they can complete it by the end of the day. And it works more efficiently to us at our company than sending an email, right? Because sometimes the other email's not up. An
Yep.
engineer might not be living in email, but they're living in Slack, where that might get within the noise of their email and they might never see it.
I think that's so smart to think about kind of meeting the employee where they're at versus where you might wish they're at. Like it
Yeah,
seems relatively small, but I think it like reduces the barrier. You can't have that, oh, I didn't see it. It's like you saw it.
that's right.
Yeah, that's very cool. How about the topic of the content itself? Like, how do you think about, hey, does this feel specific enough to us? Does this feel custom enough to us? Is an employee going to walk away knowing more than just like a really high level generality? Like, how do you think about effectiveness from the content perspective?
Yeah, that one's really tough. It's really tough because how do you measure effectiveness?
Mm,
And we can measure it by completion rates, which doesn't really measure it. It just checks the box that it was done.
yeah,
You guys offer a great back end, right? So, like at the end of the training, there's how was the training? Did you like it?
yeah,
What can we do better? We've gotten really good feedback using that feature.
yep,
We also measure the effectiveness by how are they doing with the quizzes. Think, you guys have been great. I met with Eric on your team. He had a
yeah.
nice presentation to show us where Bestow is at. And I think we have an 84% retention rate based on how folks did on the quizzes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah. So that feature is really great. We've been using that. But other than that, it is really difficult because, to your point, how do you get them to really pay attention in the training? Most of us have two or three screens, right? I'm
Yeah.
guessing folks have it up on one screen and they're multitasking, working on the other. So that's always really tough for us to judge.
Definitely. But it's great to hear that you're leveraging the features that we have beyond completion of the sort of employee ratings, the scores on the tests. Like I think some of those can be really indicative of, okay, yes, they completed it because we drove completion, but also here's what they said.
Yeah, another one, we have data privacy and cybersecurity. That's really big
Yeah.
within the insurance industry. So what
Yep.
we do after the training, like later in the year, our security team, they'll send like a fake phishing email. Like, hey,
Yep.
take this survey and you'll get a $25 gift card to Starbucks. And
Yep.
believe it or not, we have a good success rate. We only get maybe two or three folks a quarter that fall for it. And
Nice.
we resend phishing training to them and they have to take it all over again.
I think that's very smart. I'm not sure if you use Athena for this, but you can. It's probably included in your package, but we have the phishing simulator. And I agree that, yeah, I think that's such a good way to test knowledge and to see over time, do people get better? Yeah, I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned AI. This is like very on my mind, even from the product perspective. So, something we're really excited about is that AI is helping us to do a lot of things like faster language translations, dubbing videos into multiple languages. We're experimenting with different scenarios, right? So, it takes a content that was meant for a tech company like Bestow, but let's make it more manufacturing applicable, like that kind of stuff. How is AI manifesting in compliance? Are you using AI tools or are you more thinking about how do I make sure that employees using AI are doing so in a thoughtful way?
Yeah, of course, we're a tech company first. We encourage the use of AI as
Yep.
long as it's being used properly. So we have, in compliance specifically, we've built out AI governance and framework policies. We have an employee use policy for AI. We're currently working on a review and approval process. So if an employee wants to use a tool that's not approved by the company, they
Yep.
could fill out a questionnaire. It comes over to our security, legal, and then compliance teams. And we just do a deep dive and see, okay, what's this going to do? Does it integrate with our systems? How is it going to impact us? How can an employee make a mistake?
Yep.
So we try to be safe with it. We do have enterprise software licenses with certain AI tools. So when you do that, all that data stays within our company instance,
Yep.
and the company's product, whether it's Gemini or Chat GPT, whatever data we put in there, it's within the Bestow instance. So
Yep.
Chat GPT is not learning from it. There's no machine learning going on. They're not taking our data. So yeah, so again, it's really being as safe as possible, not just for the employee, but of course for the company and our partners.
Yeah, I love that. We similarly, tech companies to really encourage use of AI tools. And our VP of engineering just put an Athena training that he created on AI usage at Athena into Athena. And it was like a really good ability for us to play with the product. Of course, we do all the other compliance trainings, but this was very cool because it was so specific what you're saying to like the licenses. We have the tools we currently encourage, like what our governance structure is. And so I thought that was a great use of our LMS features of content creation, because I think that the AI training for it to be really applicable to employees, like does have to be, every company has a different stance on AI. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, so we built our own training, like
Nice.
using old school PowerPoint, and
Yeah.
then the Athena AI in the workplace training was pushed to us, and we reviewed it and was like, "Yep, we're replacing ours immediately."
Oh, sorry that we didn't catch you before the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
That's great that it was useful. And I'm very glad to hear it was better than the PowerPoint, because that would be quite sad if it wasn't. Yeah. We also just released a lot of content creation features. So in the future, if you have some very insurance specific use case that Athena won't create, you now have content creation features. So essentially you can create a sort of more employee friendly version of a PowerPoint directly in Athena. So just FYI in case that comes up again.
That's great to hear.
Amazing. Okay. Do you, aside from AI, or maybe you feel free to stay on AI, any trends that you're like really paying attention to that you think might impact like how you approach compliance, specifically how you approach training, like anything else that you're just, hey, this is on my radar. I think this is where things are going.
Yeah, I will stay on AI if you don't mind.
Fair.
I think when it comes to training specifically, one of the things that I've heard of, and I'd love to get your intel on this,
Yeah.
is from a training perspective, we have a lot of different departments at our company that are not life insurance specific, right? The
Mhm.
folks that work there don't have that background, whether it's engineers or data scientists. I
Yeah.
would love for training to be able to leverage AI with
Mm.
personal experiences, right? Because like when
Yep.
we work with a vendor, if it's not Athena, if we work with another company, like, hey, can you help us with anti-money laundering training?
Yep.
And getting employees engaged, I think it would be easier if we found a way to leverage AI and had AI
Definitely.
powered customization within that training,
Yep.
whether it's open AI using Chat GPT, where the training can get pushed out and the employee, if it's an engineer, the examples being used within the training are engineer specific versus
Yep.
maybe a customer service rep. I would love
Exactly.
to see something like that.
I think you're spot on that like role and risk based training is much better than general training. Customers today can do role and risk based training just by kind of using some of the content creation features I mentioned. It's not AI powered yet, but what they might do is add a slide, add a scenario, add a question to usually, for example, data privacy. You're thinking about your marketing team, right? That's like a high risk area. So maybe building out one or two specific scenarios that you've seen happen in the past 6 months and using our automated assignment features, it'll just go to the marketing team. So that's one way to do it. We're very excited about the idea of building out like persona based training. So, what you said, where through AI, through quizzes, things like that, we can understand more about each employee. And then, even if you have two engineers, maybe they work on different problems, maybe they use different tools. And so, their training should be like slightly different to reflect that. One other, it's non AI powered right now, but it does get training to be a little more specific. We have customers leveraging test out. And so what they do is they take a quiz beforehand, which I think is very cool. And then it's totally up to you. But I just saw a big customer launched it for code of conduct. And the way they did it is you could test out of certain topics. So if you did really well on the whatever conflicts of interest section, though that training wouldn't be assigned to you, but then there were other topics that you couldn't test out of. And or you could test out if you did very well, your training would be much shorter. And I thought that was another really nice way to make the training more specific to each employee. It was essentially like, look, if you've been here a long time, you've been paying attention to these rules, like you're probably going to get 100% and your training is going to be dramatically shorter than maybe someone who's new and didn't get it right.
Yeah, I love the test out function. We had an executive ask us, like, hey, I've been here for 5 years. I've
Yeah.
seen it all. Can I do the test out? Some of it you can. To your point, code of conduct, we probably could. But in the insurance industry, there's certain states, I'll mention California, I'll throw them under the bus. They require 2 hours of anti-fraud
Sure.
training. And you have to check the box to get the full 2 hours. And it's not something that we can test out of, but I would love to do that for everyone.
Exactly. I think that's where people are starting. Harassment prevention, another area where typically if you've got a state requirement for timing, you're not going to test out.
Yep.
The whole framework for it for us is adaptive learning. And I think something that exec maybe isn't able to test out of, but in the future, if you had a sort of more advanced version of training or a deep dive or something, like there could be slightly different tracks, as it were, which I think is at least another way to feel like, okay, at least I'm not saying the exact same stuff. But yes, we are a little bit at the mercy of both our customers' risk tolerance, which I totally understand, and the training frameworks that states and federal governments put out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, maybe a place to end would be, you mentioned Eric, your wonderful CSM. Would just love to hear, like, how's your experience been with support as a vendor? I'm always sometimes surprised that when folks are switching to us, they're saying, hey, felt like I was a bit on my own with implementation, with troubleshooting and all of that. I would just love to hear either experience with Eric or Athena support in general.
Yeah, I'll touch on both. Eric's been great to work with. I actually just emailed him on Tuesday and he didn't have an answer for me. But what I appreciated was he said, hey, email
Yeah.
received. I'm going to circle up with my manager and
Okay.
get back to you. I like that because it gets back to my comment about Slack, like speaking other folks' languages, and the fact that he was able to acknowledge, hey, I'm working
Exactly.
on this.
Love that.
And no, he's been great. We just had a quarterly sync in Q1, and I was able to leverage some of the slides that he presented to me on how the company's performing with training. There was a lot of numbers and percentages
Yeah.
on the screen. I like to see that because I'm in the weeds with training and I'm not looking at a high level how we're
Sure.
performing. So it's really nice to see that. So I appreciate him and his communication. As far as support's concerned, last year we had a project where we wanted to get away from our HR
Sure.
system,
Yeah.
integrating with Athena. And we changed over to Okta, and it couldn't have been
Okay.
smoother. Your IT folks work with our IT folks, and I want to say within 2 or 3 weeks, everything was done. We were able to test it, everything integrated
Oh,
properly.
wonderful.
So it couldn't have been smoother.
That's very cool. And you may already know this, but something that is cool about setting up the Okta flow is that you can also do lockout of systems. So an area where, back to the AI conversation, I'm seeing a lot of customers use this, is if you haven't done the company's AI compliance training, you can't, for example, get access to your ChatGPT instance, which I think it might be a little draconian.
That's pretty cool.
But it's certainly a good control to put in place for whatever you consider to be your most sensitive systems.
Yeah, I would. When people don't complete, I wish I had full support, but I would love to just give them the screen of death. Like, hey, you didn't complete your training. You can't work now.
Customers, there are some who do that. Most do it more system by system. And you're exactly right that it does require intense leadership support. Yeah.
No, we don't have that issue here at Bestow. We set
Nice.
a tone at the top. The executive team's really good. Our co-founders are great. They fully support what they're doing, and we have buy-in.
That's
on
wonderful.
training.
Well, it seems from everything I've seen personally and heard through Eric that you all have a really wonderful culture and a really robust and mature compliance program. It is really fun to get to work with you and your team. Ben, thank you so much for joining me. Tom, feel free to come back and close us out.
That was great. I learned so much. I know our audience is going to as well. I wanted to thank you, Ben, for joining Roxanne for this episode, and we look forward to continuing this conversation with you.
Thanks, all.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network, available wherever you listen to podcasts.